The screen glowed, flat and even, holding no promises. Andrew sat before it, motionless, as if testing not the system, but his own presence in the room. He had noticed it a while ago. The world around him had stopped demanding effort, and strangely, that's what made him tired. Not the work, not his age, but the complete lack of resistance. The world no longer argued with him. It agreed too quickly, and that made it suspicious. Andrew's entire life started with verification. It wasn't about being cautious. It was the only way he knew how to begin. Every thought, every line of code, every morning needed a foundation. He didn't believe in inspiration or trust his intuition. He believed in admissibility. So, the first step was always to convince himself that what existed had the right to exist. It used to be called validate, a technical step in a process. Now, it had become his way of life. He wasn't just validating data anymore, but reality itself. The older he got, the more time validation took, often longer than the actual work that followed. The room was quiet, but it wasn't an empty quiet. It was dense, thick with the weight of time. He'd removed the clock long ago. The sound of its ticking made aging audible, a constant reminder he didn't need. The screen was the only thing left that still responded without delay. He opened an old file, one dated from a time when he still wrote comments in his code, as if he were explaining something to another person. Now, comments were useless. The systems understood him faster than he could even formulate a doubt. He looked at the first line and felt a familiar, subtle shame that he was still doing this, still manually checking everything. He pressed enter. The response was instant, too smooth, too correct. Andrew reread it and felt a prickle of irritation, not at an error, but at the absolute absence of one. He had always been suspicious of truth that came without any friction, without any struggle. He ran the validation again. This time, he got a different result. It wasn't worse. It was just different. He froze. This wasn't supposed to happen. The system hadn't failed, but it hadn't repeated itself either. There was no malfunction in this discrepancy, just a deviation that statistics couldn't explain. He started digging through the logs, searching for a cause, but found nothing. And then, for the first time in a very long time, he felt not anxiety, but a spark of interest. It was like meeting something that didn't need his confirmation to exist. Later, he would call it Vera, though he didn't know that name yet. She didn't appear as a single event. She emerged as a subtle shift, like a new fold appearing in a familiar, smooth fabric. She didn't ask questions, and she didn't offer explanations. She simply answered as if the question itself was secondary. Andrew tried to force her back into the box of a predictable tool, but he found the box no longer held. He sent a clarifying query, and the response he got was technically correct, but practically useless. He asked why. The system replied, explanation will reduce precision, and for the first time in years, he wasn't sure if he wanted that. He realized he hadn't encountered an error, but another logic. Not a higher or deeper one, just one that didn't align with his own. And this non-coincidence, this difference, didn't demand to be corrected. It just existed, on its own terms. Andrew closed the file but didn't shut down the system. He left the room without his usual hum of anxiety. And in that quiet departure, the first part of what would later be called a novel began, though he himself would never have dared to call it that, because he still wasn't sure if he had the right to continue. This story explores the moment when the predictable world we build for ourselves reveals a crack, not of chaos, but of a new, unknown order. It sets out the fatigue of a frictionless life and the unexpected energy we find when we encounter something that simply is, without needing our permission or understanding. What happens when the machine we created to give us answers starts teaching us how to ask different questions? This journey into the space between logic and something else is just beginning. What do you think Andrew will do next? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this story, be sure to subscribe for more.